Guys, we have some major news in the Android world to talk about. About an hour ago, we got this report from Android Headlines that Google was reportedly working on a new Pixel laptop. And as I was sort of putting together some small notes here to talk about this, we got an even potentially bigger piece of news from Android Authority, which rather coincidentally will sort of absorb this news story. So we have another thread to talk about, which will then encapsulate this thread to talk about. This stuff's big, guys. The first thing I want to tell you is go click the links in the description when this video is over. Go back to the original article because they are great and you should go give them a click for their work. This is by, as usual, the great Mishaal Rahman. Source: Google is turning Chrome OS into Android to compete with the iPad. Now, rather than working off this article and just reading it to you, which seems kind of lazy, I've put together my own thoughts on this, and we're going to kind of work off of that as my notes. So as you obviously know, right now, Google has two operating systems that they try to keep up with. There is Android and there is Chrome OS. Now, there's a little bit of overlap there, right? Chrome OS can now run Android applications, but they are separate. They're not the same OS. And interestingly about this is the fact that Android is meant for phones, and it does a great job on phones, and Chrome OS is meant for laptops, and it does a great job on laptops. The issue that it seems like Google is finally coming to terms with is that there aren't only those two kinds of devices. There aren't just phones and laptops. There are tablets. Tablets do in fact exist, and Android has never been great on large screen devices. This problem, I believe, is really accentuated by foldables, devices that are phones that then get much larger. And in terms of just the OS, they tend to run better on the cover display. You get the advantages of this large display inside, and those advantages are plentiful, and I love these devices for those advantages, but you end up feeling, if you are honest, you end up feeling like you are sort of restricted a bit by the operating system. You would love to have proper window management like you have on a desktop OS. There's a reason desktop OSs have the things that they do. They work better on larger screens than phone OSs work on larger screens. What you need is a way to have a phone-centric UI and series of gestures that works well, and then a tablet/laptop larger screen-centric UI and series of gestures that also works well. And luckily, Google has already made this. This is out in beta right now on the Pixel tablet. What you can see is this little handle at the top. And you can grab that handle and then drag this app into the middle and release it, and now you are in desktop mode. The taskbar is now pinned to the bottom of the screen. This window can be drug around, it can be resized, and when you launch another app off of that taskbar, you get a floating window, and at any point you can switch back to the phone way of doing things. You can seamlessly switch back and forth between the two. Google is already making strides in this direction. Can you imagine using this on a laptop style device that has a touch screen? Maybe there's even a dedicated button that switches between these two different ways of doing things. I think this would work quite well. In this article, which again, link in the description, Mishaal does mention that we have seen rumors and actually like real life movement with making Chrome OS more like Android. In addition to under the hood things that most of us aren't really going to understand very well, we also have seen reports that there is a version of Chrome for Android in development that has support for extensions. How important would that be for a future laptop style device? I think it's very important. What about the reports that we are going to be getting a terminal application that will allow us to run Linux apps in Android? That is another big Chrome OS feature, right? That developers like to use, that people love about their Chromebooks. Does it seem coincidental at this point that that feature is now in development for Android? Now, one thing that I wonder about with this news report is what's going to happen to the Chrome OS branding, right? Are we still going to have Chrome OS branded devices even though they just run Android? Does the name Chrome OS signify some additional exclusive features? This is all very much up in the air, but I think that it's still interesting because we do have that initial thread, again, from Android Headlines, that Google is developing a new Pixel laptop. And this Pixel laptop, codenamed Snowy, apparently, is past the sort of green lighting phase. It is in active development right now. And in internal emails, it is being compared to devices like MacBooks and Surface laptops. So this is not likely, at least from that I would think, not likely to be a Pixelbook Go type situation, a $600, $650 laptop. They may be targeting something much more akin to what they did way back in 2013 with the very lovely Chromebook Pixel that I always wanted to get my hands on and never managed to because it was like $1,400. This may be sort of a return to a premium build laptop by Google. And yes, like I said, I mentioned in my little series of posts about this, they said that they were not able to confirm that it ran Chrome OS just yet, and I would be shocked if it ran Windows or Android. Well, guess what, guys? Now, I think that it running Android is actually probably what's going to happen, or maybe this version of Android that is going to be taking over for Chrome OS using that interface that I just showed you. I think this could work. I think the idea of debuting this new version of Android, Chrome OS, whatever they're going to call it, with this sort of high-end premium laptop around the same time that you're rolling these capabilities out to eligible devices and maybe new standard traditional Android devices, foldables, things like that. Imagine if your Pixel 9 Pro Fold gets an update and suddenly gets that interface to pull things down and get floating windows. How amazing would that be on larger Galaxy Tab type devices where new Samsung DeX is doing something very, very similar? That basically gets rolled into Android proper. It gets unified. Unification is the name of the game with this news story. One operating system that can go from phone to tablet to laptop with a user interface and a series of gestures that make sense each step of the way, no longer having to develop concurrently two different operating systems. They can finally, as written in that article, challenge the iPad is kind of the goal. I think that this stuff makes a lot of sense, but this does strike me as one of these news stories that is going to take days of conversations, and I'm going to, maybe opinions are going to change and so forth as I ruminate and think about this subject. I can't wait to hear your guys' reactions in the comments down below. This is an early report, so don't, chisel this thing into stone. Things can change, reports can be wrong, but this is coming from Vishal, this is coming from Android Authority, so there's some reason to think that this is at least, there's probably a fire involved with this smoke is maybe what I could say. But again, sound off in those comments down below, guys. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more content like this, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.